Hello. So this week I'm going to start by talking about the new Robbie Williams documentary that has recently been released on Netflix. Now, I don't know if you are a Robbie Williams fan, but it's so worth watching because it is a really honest insight into a lifestyle that is so hard to comprehend for most of us. Within moments, the documentary is opened with a really relatable point for a lot of people. So he starts by explaining that many nights, even though he's tired, he goes to bed, and it's as though his body instantly says, no, it's not time for sleep. And he is kind of haunted for at least the next 4 hours by every kind of troubling and anxiety inducing thought you can imagine. And instantly, I think a lot of us can connect with that. Certainly, I can. And often it's not necessarily because I'm going through such a difficult time. Sometimes it can be a great time, but just when there's lots going on and your brain is really stimulated, for me, it was actually quite comforting to hear someone else saying they have exactly the same thing. They go to bed and it's as though their mind and body just suddenly says, no, we're not doing this. I'm going to, kind of torture you for the next few hours while everybody else is having a lovely, refreshing sleep. Your mind is just going to be whizzing around. So, right from the start, he's very human, although he has had a very different life experience to most of us. He starts also by explaining that when he joined Take That, he was only 16, which I didn't realize at the time. I mean, I didn't really pay that much attention to Take That at the time, to be honest. And I wouldn't have been at the maturity level where I'd be thinking, oh, this member of the band is so much younger than the others. This is, potentially a little bit troubling. But no, he was the cheeky chappy. He could have the other members of the band were in their 20s, so they could have been fantastic mentors to him. But I think actually all of them were dealing with the surprise of this huge fame that they had achieved very quickly. And he was more like the really annoying, troublesome younger brother, I think. And he explains very clearly how difficult it is to be a 16-year-old who wasn't necessarily the most mature, academically bright 16-year-old thrown into the adult world, and a world of excess, a world of huge almighty pressure, huge almighty expectations, rivalry within this group of young guys who all of a sudden were, in one sense, kind of robots owned by a management company, being told exactly what they had to do, and almost every moment of their day was accounted for. And in another sense, able to indulge in pretty much whatever they wanted in terms of girls, substances, all of these kind of things. So for a 16-year-old who really needs guidance and nurturing, this is a very, very confusing and mentally challenging place to be. And again, when I look back and I think about the image that we all had of Robbie Williams at that time, just some really cocky young guy on top of the world, full of confidence, full of bravado. It's so interesting to see how different the true story was. And he almost started the way that he was to carry on with this feeling of, I'm not good enough. And that's seeming to be enforced by many of the people around him. We move on through the documentary series to Robbie leaving the band, and he creates a really successful songwriting partnership with Guy Chambers. Initially, he's not as successful as everybody thinks he's going to be, but then the song Angels drops and everything changes. And I actually do really remember the first time I heard that song. It's a bit like I remember the first time that I heard Adele's song Someone Like You. it kind of jolts you and stops you for a moment, and you think, who is that? What is that song? And I was Christmas shopping, and it was just the most beautiful, moving song that was playing in this shopping arcade. And I think it was a song that for many people, even though you might look back now and think, oh, wow, that was really cheesy because we all heard it so many times. It is just a song that strikes a chord, and it's a little bit hard to, explain why that song, why did that have such an impact on people? The lyrics are a bit strange when you really listen to them, trying to work out exactly what it's about, but it is just a song that really connects with people, and it launched Robbie as a really successful solo artist that was taken seriously, it seemed. However, he explains the fact that there were certain tabloid newspapers at the time that just never gave him a break and ridiculed him pretty much the entire time through his career for being irresponsible, for they didn't hold back, saying he was a terrible singer, saying he was overweight, saying he had no idea how to control himself. And what actually happened was, when you think back perhaps and remember him on stage, when he seemed really kind of wired and mischievous and self-confident and again full of bravado, when you watch this documentary and he talks you through what's actually happening, and you just see the face of a young guy who is, number one, an addict with a really, really debilitating illness. Number two, someone who is absolutely terrified and has lost most of their self-worth. And number three, someone who just wants this ride to stop, but it just does not know. Or, when he kind of says, I just can't do this show tonight, I am having paralyzing panic attacks, he's not given the option to walk away. We see him being given adrenaline jabs and good talkings to and things like that, and he has to get back out there on stage. And there was a point where I'm watching him, and he's telling us how difficult this particular night was for him, and you see the audience screaming his name, and there was a part of me that thought, thank God I wasn't in that audience, because I would feel terrible. This is a really sick guy, a guy that is feeling broken mentally and physically, who isn't allowed to walk off stage, and we're all just screaming for more. It's really strange how the entertainment industry works. And there's just a lot of questions that arise from this documentary. Particularly with the British press. I don't know if it's so bad anymore in terms of the way that they completely feel as though they can destroy anyone who happens to be somewhat of a celebrity. I don't read tabloid newspapers anymore. I did when I was younger. I used to enjoy all of that kind of gossip. I'm quite ashamed to say that now, because obviously you don't think at the time of the cost to the people that are being talked about. I don't know if it's the same now, but I really hope things have changed somewhat, because it was really brutal. Okay, if you're a celebrity, you're probably earning a lot of money, you're probably getting VIP treatment in many places, but that doesn't mean that you're offering yourself up to be mentally broken day after day. And I just thought about, if we logged onto our social media and we were being told how rubbish we were by 50 different voices every day, how hard that would be to continue feeling good about ourselves and motivated. And if we were sensible, what we would do is probably come off social media. But for Robbie Williams, he wasn't able to get off the train that he was on, so the damage just went on for years. And by the end of the documentary, he has finally found some peace with a wife who he clearly loves and adores, and children who are clearly giving him a real sense of stability, but you can still see he's such a broken, fragile person. And I think we really have to think about how young we're prepared to put child stars out there on stage and turn them into superstars and then watch them break. You know, how young is too young, and how much is too much for someone who hasn't yet discovered who they are yet. So it's a really interesting watch. It's 4 parts and it's really worthwhile. We binged it in 2 halves, so I think that's a pretty good way to do it. So moving on, I was very excited that Selling Sunset is back. Just an amazing reality TV show, I think, in terms of the glamorous, amazing houses that we get to see, the real, genuine connections between many of the cast members, and the fact that they go back years, which means there is a true sense of loyalty there. And when things go wrong, there is a real sense of sadness. And again, pretty much straight into the first episode, I was very connected and in tears because I was so happy for Mary that she had discovered that she was having a baby. She had her first child very, very young, did a lot of it on her own, really struggled. And now she's in a loving relationship. She's successful. She was excited to be a mother again, although a little scared as she's much older now and we think about things a bit more carefully as we get older and we start to think, oh, actually, that is quite scary. But yeah, moving from the start, I won't reveal too many spoilers if you haven't watched the whole thing yet. I've now watched the entire season. It's such an easy watch. But interesting to see how Chrishell is handling fame, because I think she started out without too many boundaries and she's trying to put boundaries in place. And typically what happens if you start off without too many boundaries and you try to put them in place, people don't like it very much. And they're saying she's changed, she's kind of got this better than you attitude, which I really don't think is true. I think she's been through a lot. Her husband left her. She wasn't expecting that. She fell in love with Jason. She thought that they were going to create a family together and she'd found a happy ever after. And although Jason clearly still loves her deeply, he wasn't ready for a family. So her heart was broken again. Now she's in a new relationship with G-Flip. She seems very, very happy and she's trying to guard her happiness a little bit. So I feel as though she's getting a little bit of a hard time. She's also going through some health issues. And I feel that Chrishell is actually pretty honest about her experience. And we know that she's gone from maybe being reasonably well known in the States to being a real kind of global star. Everybody thinks she's beautiful. Everybody loves her, so she's gone through this huge change. And as a child that came from very, very, very little and very difficult circumstances, she's trying to take that all in and she's being very honest about that. So I'm really rooting for Chrishell. Mary, again, just so real and so sweet, and really rooting for her to find her happy ever after. And I have to say, I think Jason might be the best boss in the entire world. He's just so fair. He's just so kind. He takes everybody's feelings into consideration, but he has a hugely successful business without needing to be, the typical boss that can sometimes be a bit of an arsehole, ruthless, unkind, unfair. Absolutely not. He is at the top of his game, but he's a really good guy. And it's such a shame that he has this kind of reluctance to settle down with anybody, because I think he really did find love with Chrishell, and what a couple they could have been. But he's reverted to type and he has a much younger girlfriend and she's very sweet, but it's just not Jason and Chriselle. So, and I don't think that's ever going to happen again. But generally speaking, they are a great group of people. Sometimes they bring new cast members in that you're not sure about, and it all feels a bit contrived, but it's definitely worth watching. It's great fun. I love seeing the houses and the interiors, and thank goodness we live in a great climate so that we're not constantly feeling envious of the blue skies and the sunshine. But yeah, Selling Sunset, I would definitely recommend binging that series if you've got time and you just want to switch off. So I am looking forward to seeing you next week to have another little chat about reality TV and some of the interesting points that I can pick out from there in terms of relationships.